The night shift always felt longer on the last day. The corridors of St. Brigid's Medical Center hummed with the tired rhythm of machines and footsteps, and Nurse Eleanor, Ellie, Ward, moved through them with the calm precision she had carried for 32 years. Her hands, steady despite the ache in her shoulders, adjusted IV lines and smoothed blankets with the same quiet care she'd given thousands of patients before. Tonight, she wasn't counting minutes. She was counting memories. Faces she'd held through fear, breaths she'd coaxed back into fragile bodies, and promises whispered in the dark that everything would be all right, even when it wasn't. The charge nurse handed her the clipboard with a small smile and a hug that lingered longer than usual. "You're really leaving us," she said, half joking, half not. Ellie smiled back, the kind that carried gratitude and grief in equal measure. Her final patient was a young man with bandaged hands and eyes full of restless courage. He thanked her 3 times for adjusting his pillows, for listening, for simply staying. Ellie nodded, the way nurses do when words aren't necessary, and finished her charting with neat, deliberate strokes. At 6:58 a.m., she hung her stethoscope on its hook for the last time. At 7 a.m., she signed out, placed her badge in her locker, and closed the door softly, as if not to wake the years behind it. She changed into a simple coat, ran her fingers once over the worn fabric of her scrubs folded inside, and took a breath that felt like the end of a long prayer. Retirement, she thought, sounded like a gentle word for something so loud inside her chest. The lobby was quieter than usual, washed in pale morning light. Ellie stepped outside, letting the cool air touch her face, when she noticed the vehicles, matte black, unmarked, lined with exacting symmetry along the curb. Men stood near them, still as statues, their posture unmistakable. She paused, unsure if she was intruding on something official, and took a step to go around. That's when boots struck pavement in unison. The sound was sharp, deliberate, and it stopped her cold. One of the men turned, eyes focused, jaw set, and raised his hand in a crisp salute. Then another, and another. A line of them, faces calm and solemn, saluted her as if she were a commanding officer stepping onto a parade ground. Allie's first instinct was confusion. "You must have the wrong person," she said softly, her voice barely carrying over the morning. The man nearest her lowered his salute but didn't relax his stance. "No, ma'am," he said, and there was a weight in the word that made her heart stutter. "We don't." The others followed suit, salutes lowering as one, and the leader stepped forward. "Nurse Eleanor Ward," he continued, his tone respectful, measured. "We're here to thank you." Ellie felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. Thank her? For what? For doing her job? For staying late and missing birthdays? For holding hands and telling strangers' children that their parents were brave? He gestured toward the hospital behind her. 20 years ago, he said, a team was brought here after an operation went bad. Burns, shrapnel, infections, the kind of injuries that make even the strongest man afraid. You were assigned to them. You worked double shifts, you argued with doctors when you thought they were wrong, you sat with them when nightmares wouldn't let them sleep. His voice softened. You learned their names, their families. You didn't treat them like heroes or broken things. You treated them like people. Ellie's breath caught as images surfaced, faces she'd tried not to keep because keeping them made goodbyes heavier. A man who'd flinched at sudden sounds until she taught him to breathe through it. Another who refused pain meds until she convinced him that strength included accepting help. She remembered the way one of them had laughed when she scolded him for flirting with the nurses, despite being wrapped in bandages. I just did what any nurse would, Ellie said, though her voice trembled now. The leader shook his head. Respectfully, ma'am, not everyone would. He nodded to the others. Those men went on to serve. Some didn't. All of them carried what you gave them. He paused, swallowing. One of them was my brother. The morning seemed to hold its breath. He didn't make it home years later, but he told us about you. He said when he couldn't sleep, you stayed. When he thought he'd never be the same, you looked him in the eye and said, then we'll find a new way to be strong. He asked us, if we ever met you again, to salute you. Ellie pressed a hand to her mouth as tears blurred the line of the curb. A Around them, hospital staff had gathered quietly, drawn by the stillness, the gravity. Phones stayed in pockets. No one spoke. The men straightened once more, boots aligned, shoulders squared. On behalf of those you saved, those you steadied, and those you sent back into the world believing they mattered, he said, "We thank you, ma'am." He raised his hand again, and the salute returned, sharper this time, heavier with meaning. Ellie stood there, a nurse in a simple coat, receiving a tribute she had never imagined. Her hands shook as she lifted one in an awkward half-wave, then steadied. She didn't know how to stand like a soldier, but she knew how to stand like herself, present, open, unafraid to feel. "I'm honored, truly, but you don't owe me anything." The leader smiled, a small, genuine curve that softened the years etched in his face. "We know, ma'am. That's why we're here." The salute dropped. The line broke. One by one, the men stepped forward, not to shake hands, but to nod, to meet her eyes, to let her see what had become of pain turned into purpose. A younger one lingered. "My mother was a nurse," he said quietly. "She taught me what courage looks like." Ellie nodded, understanding the language of unsaid things, and touched his arm in the way nurses do when words are too small. When the engines finally started and the vehicles rolled away, the morning seemed to exhale. Applause rose from the small crowd, hesitant at first, then warm and steady. Ellie felt herself flush, embarrassed, and grateful all at once. The charge nurse hugged her again, laughing through tears. "Guess you picked the right profession," she said. Ellie smiled, looking back at the hospital doors that had framed her life. She thought of the nights she'd questioned herself, the times she'd gone home hollowed out by loss. She thought of the quiet victories no one saw. And she understood, perhaps for the first time, that care leaves echoes. Ellie walked to her car slowly, letting the sun warm her face. Retirement no longer felt like an ending, but a handoff, a gentle lowering of a torch she had carried faithfully. Somewhere, she knew, there were people moving through the world steadied by a kindness they might never fully name. She sat behind the wheel and rested her hands there, steady as ever. Her last shift was over. Her work, she realized, would keep going, carried forward in salutes, in breaths taken through fear, in the simple, brave act of staying. For more thrilling, emotional, and unforgettable stories, don't forget to subscribe, hit like, and share with friends who love powerful twists.